Okay, let's go.
The Bland Show. Pretty bland, isn't it?
Hello, this is Noah Bland, part of the Bland Show. I'm here with a dear friend of the family, an NFL Hall of Famer, the 1981 NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Temple University's own New York Jet legend, accolades galore for this guy, Joe Klecko. Joe, how are we doing today?
Great. No, I see you got all my notes.
I have the whole list.
You made it sound fantastic, my friend. Very good.
I really appreciate it. We have so much in store today. This is going to be so exciting. Let's hop right into it. And I want to ask you, first things first, I'd love to start with a gift. I give all of my guests a gift. So shortly, I'm going to be giving it to my grandfather. I'm going to be giving you, Mr. Trucker himself, a Hess truck toy.
Oh, very cool. Yes.
Because not only because you were a trucker, because Mr. Hess was also your owner.
Yeah. Yeah, he was, well, matter of fact, back in 1981, I think it was, Danny, my son who played in the NFL, and I did a Hess toy truck commercial. And we used to collect them all the time. Even after I got done playing and stuff, Mr. Hess always had a person I could call and get, because we have a pretty good collection of them, matter of fact.
And they happen to be green and white.
Yes, exactly.
Just happen to be. So let's get into it. We'll start there because I know football is deep in your heart. It's part of your passion. It's been part of your life forever. But another piece of your heart is being a trucker. So beyond, a lot of people know about your football stories. Do you have any fun trucker stories?
Oh, geez, whiz. They're great stories to me and friends and all. Hopefully your viewers would think that's funny. I was a specialized heavy hauler. Typical, here I was, a big guy like me. I used to haul really big stuff for a company out of Eddystone, Pennsylvania called Robbins Motor Transportation. I used to haul tanks. I hauled things like I held a drive shaft, not the drive shaft, but the propeller to a super tanker from Baltimore, Maryland, where, we used to have a shipbuilding place with a Bethlehem Steel there. I hauled it to Jacksonville Shipyard, and I came back and I got the drive shaft for it. Now, the drive shaft weighed 200,000 pounds, which, if you know trucking, 80,000 pounds is the most you can carry. And I was on a flatbed that looked like a caterpillar. I had so many wheels underneath it. And the propeller I took was 20 feet wide, which is, if you understand that's 2 lanes of a highway. And the propeller itself weighed, about 190,000 pounds too. So I had some real interesting times, hauling stuff across the country. And then one of my favorite play of trucking, I used to be a big NASCAR fan. Well, I still am. But I worked with U.S. Tobacco, Skoal, and during them days, I was always at the track and stuff. So when the guys would ride from Carolina out to California, they needed a second driver to get there, fast enough. They needed team drivers. I volunteered all the time, and I used to drive from Carolina into race teams, and all the way out to California and then back. So I had a lot of fun experiences driving trucks, and of course, my movie prowess arrived because of my trucking ability. Burt Reynolds actually seen an article I did in Sport. I was actually fake holding a truck up, and it was a whole story about my trucking. And Bert seen it and called my house. Matter of fact, I wasn't home, but he got the number from the New York Jets, and he offered me a part in the movie, Smokey and the Bandit 2.
Yeah, well, there you go. And so we talked about you've been in movies, you've been the big guy, the big figure, and movies. Did you notice kind of any similarities between Hollywood, the NFL, maybe?
I guess the only similarities you get would be notoriety, really. NFL, you're beating people up. Hollywood, you don't go that way. It's if it is, it's fake. So I remember the scene I did in the movie with Jackie Gleason, and I reach in the window. He's a sheriff, and he's telling me to get out of the way, and I go to intimidate him, and I reach in to crush his badge. Well, when I reached in to crush his badge, it actually was a sheriff's badge, and if you ever had one in your hand, they're very hard and I couldn't bend it right away. So they went, cut. And they said, Joe, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to put your hand in there, cut away. We're going to bend the badge and put your hand back. I said, like hell you will. I said, I'll bend that badge. So we do the scene again. I reach in to bend the badge. Now I know I got to do it or I'm going to have egg on my face. I crushed the badge. My hand was bleeding. The whole thing was so, but I did it. I had to do it because my machoism was on the line here, So that was a Creed story too.
Badge is crooked, sir.
Much obliged.
That's awesome. That's great. We'll get into more movie stuff later. Let's get into the nitty gritty here. Let's talk about football. You were the only player in NFL history, as of today, to make the Pro Bowl at three different positions. Talk about the versatility. How difficult is it to play nose tackle, defensive end tackle, and defensive end? How difficult is it to play those different positions? And what are the differences between playing the different positions?
Well, for me, it wasn't hard because I basically took all my principles of playing and utilized them in every position. I think the place where it was odd was me being a shorter guy at defensive end. I mean, that was a little different. But the benefit I had was I was so strong that, my center of gravity was so low that I would get under them big tackles and be able to just move them out of the way. Now at guard, it's a natural, when I played defensive tackle. But at nose tackle, I think what it was everything happens fast inside, it's more than outside, from defensive end. And when I was younger, I used to fight. And I used to fight. I actually fought at Clover Lake with Joe Frazier's gym. And I learned to use my hands real well. Well, when it came to nose tackle, you have to react. It's a reaction. You don't just come off the ball and you'll get thrown on your face every time. So you got to react. And I learned that my prowess from boxing, I mean, I was never no killer in boxing. I enjoyed it. I had fun at it, but it really helped me inside. And believe it or not, out of all three positions, everybody, when I talk to offensive and defensive players, they say, you like nose tackle? I said, yeah. I said, you know what it was? Because I was moving so much, the guys hardly touched me, I really enjoyed inside. But my body type, I played the same way every position. I just, when I played end and I led the league in sacks that year, I think it was, we were ahead in a lot of games. We were rushing the passer a lot, and that's what benefited me.
Yeah, that's great. So you were a boxer. That I didn't even know that. You were, Joe Frazier and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's really
yeah.
cool to hear.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And playing those three different positions, making the Pro Bowl, I can't imagine. So what do they're throwing kids nowadays at all these different positions. What do you think you would tell somebody young, like maybe even your son as he's growing up, about how to adapt to different positions while they're young?
No, my sons are now old.
Well, when they were young,
Yeah.
when they were
Well, I
young.
did. My son Dan, I taught very well, and Dan, matter of fact, got drafted by the Patriots in the fourth round. He played for 8
Patriots.
years, and he has 3 Super Bowl rings. So I did teach him well, and it worked out. All my sons were real good. 3 sons I have, and they all played in college and went on scholarship and all. All of them in high school were defensive players of the year in their area, And it was easy for me to teach it, Plus, my kids were pretty good athletes from the get-go, so it wasn't hard for them to become better.
But also, like, what would you, because you see so many people, so many fathers get on their kids so much that it doesn't make them want to play, but you also want to teach your kids. Where do you find that balance, you think, about getting on your kids, but also, letting
Well,
them enjoy the game?
with me, it was easy because I am not being arrogant when I say this. No father out there knew what I knew. You know what I mean? I was, as far as I remember, I went to one of my son's high school coaches and I said to him, I said, I'd like to help you coach. He goes, well, what do you want to coach about? I said, well, I can teach techniques to your defensive and offensive people right off the bat. He said, well, what do you want to teach? I said, well, you got to learn how to use your hands, learn how to use your feet. So he comes back to me 2 days later and he says to me, yeah, we're teaching that. We don't need your help. I'm like, here's a guy who is an all-pro professional football player. You're a high school coach, and you don't need my help. I don't care if I'm keeping score for you on the sidelines. I think you can use my help. But anyway, I used to coach from the stand. And what I mean by that, I used to have signals on what the kids to do inside, outside, over the top, use your hands. I had one of the fathers told me one day at Danny's high school game, he goes, Joe, he goes, I like watching you more than the game. He goes, you're in the stands. He goes, you look like a guy landing airplanes, talking to your son, So it was kind of fun.
That's great. That's great. More on the NFL aspect, though. You had a long, long wait for the NFL Hall of Fame, and you watch some of the offensive linemen who played against you, and they're like, "Why isn't Joe in already?" Were you ever afraid that you might not get in?
Well, really, no, I'm so gracious. It's unbelievable. But I never really, my life is what it is. It changed a little because of the Hall of Fame. But as your grandfather will tell you about me, I'm the same person I am today as I was 30 years ago. Nothing was going to change me. The accolade of having that over your locker as a Pro Football Hall of Famer, tremendous, fantastic, and I think it was great. But as far as me waiting and to get it done, people used to say to me, "Oh, Joe, you almost had it." I said, "Yep, next year maybe." I'd go on in my life. I'd go to work. I'd do whatever I had to do. See, guys dream about it and want it. And I wanted it as much as anybody else. But I wasn't going to lose my identity over not being a Pro Football Hall of Famer, If I was ever to get it, and which it has changed my life to the point where my recognition now is even better because, wow, you're a Hall of Famer. That has a ring to it that nobody else can have. But still, I was never really discontent with not being there. I was glad for everybody that did it. And I was hoping someday that I would get it, not posthumously, but I would get it while I was still above ground. And it happened. So it was good.
That's great. Yeah, I remember because my grandfather, the relationship that you had with my grandfather, and how he worked with you. I'd often hear about the story is that my grandmother, my grandfather's wife,
Yes.
my grandmother called you and she said, "You've been drafted." You said, "By who?" "The Jets." And you said, "Where?" You said, "Sixth round." First thing you said is, I don't know if it were the exact words. You can correct me on this, but it's like, I'm going to show them, everybody else that they got
How
it
they were
wrong.
wrong. Yeah, exactly. I was mad because what had happened, because in them days, there wasn't a lot of publicity and you didn't know much about everybody. Like today, what the guy's jockstrap sizes as a freshman in college, Back then, nobody knew who I was. But the Eagles came to me and said to me, wow, if you're there in the middle rounds, they hit a fifth round pick. They said, we're going to take you. They told me that. Okay. And the fifth round came by and they drafted a fella that never made it, never made it out of, I think, the first cut of the Eagles, And, I went on to play. And at the time, it was like, the who? The Jets. Who the hell? Because the Jets were nothing at that time. And this was in 1977. They hadn't won a Super Bowl since '69, I think. And they were a doormat of the East, and nobody really contemplated anything coming. But I was going to prove everybody wrong. And, that one of the great stories about which I tell to some of the guys up there at the Jets. When I was a rookie, it was the last week of the last cut, and we were running scout team for the first team offense, and I was a scout team defensive tackle. And they came out and go, all right, guys, listen, we're going to go half speed. Now, I didn't have a job yet. They didn't tell me I was on the team yet or nothing. And they come out and, they're going to go half speed. Well, I busted a guard in the mouth, hit in the backfield, hit the fullback, and I sprained his neck. The week before the first game, the starting fullback. Well, they all got in my face. Well, I said to them, I said, guys, I don't give a shit what you do. You want a piece of me? I said, come get it. I said, I'm going to be here all day and I ain't going nowhere. I said, you got a job and I don't. And I said, I don't know what half speed is. And that was my motto, and for that reason, no, it was amazing. Nobody would really mess with me. It was funny. Yeah.
That does seem to be a kind of a staple of who you are and where you came from a working class background. And you were so motivated sometimes that you played semi-pro football under a different name, actually, just so you can keep college eligibility. Tell me a little bit more about that.
That was a very unique story, and my way to the pros is unique. When I got out of high school, I didn't get an offer to go anywhere. And I came from, like you said, working class. I didn't have no money. And to pay to go to college, I wasn't going to do it. And so I didn't really know how good I was as a high school football player. I only went out for high school for football my senior year. And I only started 6 games. And I made All-State, and the Eagles had a special for Philadelphia football, which is pretty good. Catholic League and Public League was pretty good. I made that team. They gave me the award for the best football player in the area. I only played 6 games, but nobody offered me a scholarship. So when I had a chance to play football again, it was with this semi-pro team the year after I got out. I was at a game, softball game, and one of the coaches that was going to coach the football team said to me, Joe, there's a lot of guys, we'd like you to come out. I said, oh, great. So I actually went out to the field, and I pull up in my car, and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, Debbie, was with me, and I got embarrassed. I didn't want to get out of the car. I was still shy. I was only 19 or 18 years old, whatever I was, and she took my keys and threw them out the window. And I looked at her strangely, like, why did you do that? Well, here I had to go get him. He sees me, the coach, and he goes, hey, Joe, come on over, come on over. And I turn and look at my wife like, with that stare, like I'm going to kill you. But if it wasn't for her throwing out them keys, I would never be in the Hall of Fame.
I hate to cut you off, but Marty Bland is calling me right now. The one and only.
God, answer it.
Marty, we are on the phone with Joe on the podcast. Do you have anything to add?
That's right now. And it's quite chilly here. I got to tell you, man.
We're not worried about you being chilly. You're at the Met game?
How you doing, guys?
We're doing wonderful. We're on air. Do you know that?
Yeah, I can't hear. It's bad.
We're on air.
Have fun, guys. Call me when you get off, all right?
All right, all right. We will talk soon. Goodbye. Bye. Me and Joe can both tell you that guy is one real pain in the ass, but we love him. We love him.
Yeah, I know your grandfather now. My God, let me see. 77. He was there when I was first drafted. So you count the years. I'm not good at math, but I know him 50 years, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, there's a story that my dad always tells me that his dog Garp, they used to call him, he was afraid to swim. And Garp would run away from the pool, and you picked him up. And one day you're like, I'm not doing this, and you picked Garp up. We're gonna get him to swim, and you threw this giant golden retriever into the pool. I don't know if you know this part of the story. He learned how to swim, but when they got home, he peed for about a minute straight. He peed out the way for about a minute straight. He peed out the water.
You know why he got the golden retriever? Because I had a golden retriever. I told him, he didn't want a dog in the very beginning and all that. So, I told him about getting a golden retriever. Golden retrievers are dogs, are the water dogs, Their feet are webbed. Throw him in the water, he'll swim, And that was my theory, throw him in the water.
It worked, but he ended up taking a big gulp, apparently, of the water. But that is how me and Joe know each other. It is funny because my grandfather was a Jets fan, so I'm sure there was a sense of relief. It was almost a perfect storm because you ended up being his best client, obviously an NFL Hall of Famer,
Yeah.
and then you were his only local client, and you kind of he watched your career, you watched him, the teacher he was. So many stories with you. We were at your Hall of Fame party. Let's kind of shift now because I really wanted to talk about the sack exchange because, man, you guys were dominant. I want to talk about kind of what do you think made that defensive line, forget what everybody else is, made that defensive line so scary?
Well, Mark and I were the reasons it was tough. But what happened was with Abdul and with Marty, we could depend on them not to give up on. The one thing you never want to do is let a quarterback step up to throw the football. Perfect example is that Tom Brady. Tom Brady is always the kind of guy, you ever notice the pocket in front of him is always clean. And that's why the people coached around him, which is a big deal. Well, Abdul and Marty would collapse that pocket to a point. And Mark Gaston and I were really such feared pass rushers that once we got ahead in the game and all we had to do was pin our ears back, people were scared. I mean, I remember we put the Giants in the playoffs last year in '81, and we were playing Green Bay, and Lynn Dickey was the quarterback, and at that time he was on his last leg anyway. We had 9 sacks. I think we hit him. We hit him though 15 times, and back then when you didn't throw the ball 25% of the time, that's a lot of hits on a quarterback, and I think that was one of the reasons. Anytime we had a good football team offensively, that was Freeman McNeil's beginning, Wesley Walker. We had some great receivers, Altoon at that time too. So we had some pretty good players, and offensively we could score. So when we got ahead in the football game, boy, it was Katie barred the door. And I'm telling you, we would make guys so nervous. Offside penalties, holding penalties. We really did have a good time with it because, not for naught, it was because of the way Mark and I rushed the passer.
Yeah, collapsing. It is a different game nowadays, especially because you get guys like Brady. They teach the game very differently. So I kind of want to ask you if we can kind of transition. You take a look at the sack exchange now. Who would you compare your game to, and maybe Marty, Mark, Abdul? Who would you compare their respective games, and especially you two in the NFL right now, or just the modern era? Maybe guys who have retired.
Well, I don't, Mark and I were the only 2 guys ever in NFL history to have 20 sacks in 1 year on the same team. You don't see that anymore. I mean, you have guys, like Watt and what's called, they have good seasons, 18, 19, and 20 years, but you don't have 2 of them. You know what I mean? So I think relating to it, I think the Eagles this past year, their defensive line and their pass, they were awesome. They got after. I mean, look what they did to Mahomes in the playoffs, and look what they did to Washington the game before their playoff. They destroyed them. Their defensive line, and it's very seldom you have 2 guys, and they had 2 tackles like that. That was even rarer that rushed the passer and collapsed the pocket the way them guys did. So it's hard to say as a team, like to say these 4 guys were like us. Are there singular guys that were like us? Yeah. But I don't think anybody has ever come along. Like, you just talk about the purple people eaters, Alan Page and Carl Eller, 2 defensive ends were real good. They're real old. I know you don't know. But there's a lot of guys out there that never were like him and I. Mark and I had such an overwhelming presence against the offense. I don't know who today is out there without bringing blitzes or other guys, but with 4 guys just rushing. I don't know anybody out there.
And if you were to play today, how do you think you would have to adjust to the game to how offensive tackles and offensive linemen have adjusted? You
I
think?
don't think, as far as our physicality, ability, and rushing and so forth, I don't think anything would change. I think the biggest thing would change is we'd get a lot of penalties. I mean, because you can't touch the quarterback. I mean, if you braze his head, they give you a 15-yard penalty. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I don't know how I'd get used to it, but you have to, of course. But nowadays, I agree they should protect the quarterback because people want to see points, and that's the game. I mean, it doesn't do any good to kill the guy, and that's what you're trying to do as a defensive lineman. You're trying to take his head off all the time, because not for naught, you take a main quarterback, again, Kansas City is a good example. You take Mahomes out of the equation, it's a whole different game. So today, I don't think there would be much different in the way we play, but I think there would be a lot difference in the penalties.
Yeah, you'll notice that penalties have a big factor, but also crowd noise, right? A lot of teams were playing in kind of baseball stadiums. You played the majority of your games at Shea Stadium, I believe.
Yeah.
What is the difference playing on kind of that dirt infield as to now these new full football? I'm sure you've been to the link where the Eagles play.
Sure.
What do
Yeah.
you think is the difference playing on kind of those baseball ruggedy fields? Because as opposed to the new football only fields.
Well, I'm a big fan of dirt, and back then when we played with Shea and any other places, you had that when baseball season wasn't quite over yet, you always had to put up with the infield, the cutouts for second base or first base or whatever it was. You had to deal with that. And that diamond T dirt they use in baseball always used to get under your tape and everything. It was almost like stone. It's not like dirt. So I liked playing in that kind of situation. But I think what happened was when they tried to transition the game from actually dirt to the astroturf, which is an old time, that was really bad. That's where a lot of injuries came from. And you see it now. Well, see, Major League Soccer, you're not it's outlawed. They can't use artificial turf. Everything you play in Major League Soccer is natural turf, is grass. So I think it's a great thing for the athletes to do that because, astroturf or field turf, whatever they call it, there's nothing like regular grass.
We take a look all the ACL injuries, the MCL. I don't know if you're still a Jets fan, but the Aaron Rodgers, that whole thing. There is so much controversy around the MetLife Stadium turf because
Yeah.
of the injuries it's caused. Do you think there's a real big issue there with turf taking over?
I don't know if it's that big of an issue, because of course you get a guy like Rogers who gets hurt, and that throws a big flag. But at 41 years old, you can't expect your body to be totally in the best condition that it was. I don't care how much you work out, you're just older, you're more brittle. And I think that's what happened to him because he wasn't really hit. He was bent over a little bit, got caught in the pile. But listen, I broke my patella tendon, okay, up in New England, okay? And basically that was in natural turf too. So as far as the turf lending to more injuries, yes. When your foot gets stuck, you can't get it out. And in dirt, it gives away, so there's a lot less injuries for that reason. But as far as the human being in it, like Rogers at 41 years old, I think that's more of a factor it is than the turf.
Yeah, and there you actually in 1982 after your defensive player of the year season, you hurt your knee and you talked about your return. So how do you kind of motivate players to uh from, coming from injury, where would you say is the best way to recover and how do you motivate them to really be in good shape for the next season?
Well, it's not like hard work. Hard work, there's no replacement for it. And also what's in here, that little space between your chest where it carries your heart, there's a lot of, it determines a lot of guys' futures. And if you want to work hard and you want to do it, you can do it. Because when I broke my patella tendon, everybody said my career was over. Everybody. That's the best thing I ever heard. That's all you got to tell me, is you're not going to ever play again. Well, I worked my butt off and everything. I played in December in the playoffs, and I broke my knee in September. And they're like, this is unheard of. No, it's not. If you work hard enough to rehab it, and if you work hard enough to get back, I lived in a training room. I lived to get ready, and I played in the playoffs.
Let's switch over back to college football. College football is in a crazy state. We talked about your work ethic, how the heart you have, and that showed up at Temple University. You had a game against Delaware. I don't know if you know about this. 5 sacks, 15 tackles. That is unheard of. That is unheard of. So you were obviously showing out at Temple. Being at a lower school, being at a smaller school
Yeah,
in the modern age, you might get an offer the next year, a transfer portal offer to play at a school like the University of Alabama,
sure.
like a big name school, and you might get thrown a lot of money to play at that school. What do you think your stance would have been? And you were young, but in hindsight, I guess, what do you think your stance would have been on that? And how do you feel about NIL now?
I'm torn between it because the one thing that I like is the guys who play the game, um, they are the game, and the college players that play are. But I don't like them being able to next year go into the portal and transfer. I don't like that because you take the recruiting for the college coach who did it. Let's say it was a great one. Let's say it's Saban when he was on top in Alabama. You could still leave there. Like who did that? Jalen Hurts did, right? He left there
Yes.
and went to Oklahoma, right? I think it was.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe so.
So you take a guy who, they had Jalen Hurts, and they were, but they came in. Tua took over, and he was able to just go ahead and leave. I don't like that. Now it sounds bad because of the player may have gotten what he wanted, but it always seems that, in my experience, when somebody is good enough, you'll get found. Now, did he not make as much money as he might have and all that? Yes. But we're talking about money nowadays. Listen, I always use this one number, and it's very understanding if you understand finance. You make $20 million. If you can't live the rest of your life debt free and current, you're an idiot. Okay. And all these guys that go broke after making $100 million, it's just stupid what they do. That's nobody's fault. I think that's where that's where paying them and giving them kind of money at a young age, I don't think it's smart. I think you lose. You're going to have 25 teams in college football now, and that's going to be it. Everybody else is going to look for crumbs, and hopefully they get enough players to have a good season. But you're going to have 25 teams that are always going to be the top 25, just about. And that's why. That's because the NIL. That's the money you're being paid by off campus type things. And I just think it ruins you. Well, look what it's done to a lot of the young guys that are coming out. They're really, really, they're haughty. They're more not receptive to they're telling their coaches to F off, and where's that teaching discipline and everything? I just think, and I understand they're the game. They are, and they should make money. But there's got to be a better way than what it is. I just don't like it.
I think what you had to say is very relevant. The kid from Tennessee just had a college holdout, essentially, where he was getting paid about I think $8 million already, and he wanted $4 million more. It is I don't want to say unacceptable because I understand wanting to get paid, but at the same time, I think that I can relate to the idea of athletes when they get paid. Um, Wanting them to understand being financially responsible.
That's the
I,
key.
I sorry,
That's the key.
being
Understanding how to
financially
be
responsible,
right. Exactly. Yeah.
and that is a big part of it. I also think, and to your point about the top 25 uh, aspect, I completely agree. I think it's going to be it's turning into the NFL where there are going to be 25 teams. There's going to be the Big Ten of the SEC, and the teams that move there. I wouldn't be surprised if Clemson moves to the SEC, Florida State moves to the SEC. Some of the ACC teams move to the Big Ten. Notre Dame moves to the Big Ten because it is scary. And when you look at guys like Temple, I mean, how does that make you kind of
Oh
fearful for the
yeah,
future of the program?
I mean, how do you recruit? How do you go get guys? How do you get a top 5 recruit or a top 20 recruit for all that? How do you get them to even look at you or come visit you from that standpoint? And see, I think the one thing that guys don't understand, and I think agents lead them in the wrong way here, is you got to have an ability, you have to have a real confidence in your ability, okay? And it's just like a negotiating of a contract with one team. You tell them you want this, and they say, well, you're not worth it. Okay, fine. I'm not worth it. I'll take my chances, But if you're able to do what you think you can do, play for this team that has your rights as a college football player. And then extend yourself. When you get to the big leagues, you're going to make up that $4 million because you have the ability. Now, if you're not that good and you don't think you're going to make it to the NFL to cover that $4 million, now that's another subject. And I think that's where a lot of guys are falling guilty of, because I don't think they're good enough as they think they are to come into the NFL.
Okay, awesome. So, pardon me, another Marty Bland text, as you know well. Um, you grew. Let's get back to growing up in that Pennsylvania area. Pennsylvania has kind of become a hotbed of football talent. And what do
Always
you
has
think?
been.
Well, yeah, well, exactly. What do you think is different about Pennsylvania as opposed to, states even like Maryland, where I am, states like along the East Coast? What do you think is what's in the water down there or
Well,
up there?
I tell you, I believe that a lot of European blood runs through Pennsylvania. Me being an old Polak, I remember everybody in my family, everybody involved in our world of Polish ethnicity, were strong people, and I think you see that a lot in Pennsylvania. The coal mining towns of Pittsburgh, and the same thing on the East Coast. And then the farmers, it's a working class world, really. I mean, you have Harrisburg and Philadelphia. Pittsburgh really doesn't claim itself to be an AI world, I mean, I think, it's the old steel mills and that mentality. Those people are still there in that bloodline. You know what I mean? I just think that, I think it's the old European influence of it. I think that's what made Pennsylvania.
I also think it's the nitty-gritty part of that. I mean, I grew up not a college football fan, and I went to Penn State for a year, and now I'm at Maryland, but I'm still a Penn State football fan because I can't root for it's hard not to root for Penn State once you leave. It is that aspect of football in Pennsylvania is almost like religion. They love the birds. The Steelers are fantastic, and everybody in between roots for Penn State.
Yeah.
So I think I can relate to you kind of on that end, just seeing that crowd. I mean, they live and they breathe and they love football on the American aspect. And something that caught my eyes, you have the European blood all around Pennsylvania. It shows. But now, how do you grow the game maybe in Europe, I guess?
That's I've wondered about that, because now they're trying to introduce the league over there and actually create teams. I don't know how they're going to do that because out of where you put 2 more teams on over there, and guys are going to keep traveling back and forth, and then they're going to travel. That's a tough one. I don't know. How do you grow in Europe? Leave it alone. Europe's got soccer. Let us have our football. Is it really the NFL owners or the NFL don't need any more money? I know that. But, how do you grow it? Why does it have to grow? I mean, why can it just not stay what it is? You want to get a few more teams here or maybe Canada? I mean, put a team in Canada. Toronto has always wanted a football team. The Bills used to play there every now and then just to bring that, the want into Canada and stuff. So they can have a team. And we have so many others. Why do you have to go to Europe? You really, why? No, I don't get it.
I think it causes a lot of trouble. Also, too, it's hard to teach this game from a perspective of language barriers. How are you going to explain to a kid in Czechoslovakia what a halfback draw is, right? And
It's not
it's
easy.
as opposed to soccer, you kick a ball in the net, you pass the ball, you kick it in the net.
Yeah.
There is a big difference.
You and I go real well with that.
Yeah, there is a big difference too. I think the difference of a game, but that one really I wasn't prepared for the Europe thing, but I thought it was really good, a really good kind of inquiry as to it's something I should ask you. And the game is growing. I mean, America, it's the second or first dominant sport in America. It is all over the place. But it also is coming with a lot of scrutiny. People all over Twitter are giving athletes hell, and people are. I mean, even college and with gambling on games now, athletes are getting death threats right and left, and even collegiate athletes.
Yeah,
That is scary, and I think you recognize that too. And I'm sure in your day,
no doubt. Yeah.
yeah, more on that.
And well, the
Oh,
thing
you're
about
muted.
it,
Oh, there you go. There you go. You're good. You're good.
no, I
Go
don't know what the
ahead.
hell, I don't know what I did. All right, but the thing of it is, for football wise, as far as the gambling aspect, I believe that's where the NFL went wrong. Okay. The NFL allowed the betting world into them and took control of it a little bit because they had to get their piece of it. Why did you have to have a piece of gambling? Why do you have to deal with when I was playing, they made a law. You weren't even allowed to go to a casino. You weren't allowed in there. It was illegal for you to go there, or you would get suspended from the league. And now the NFL's in bed with the casinos on all these betting parlors and stuff like that, all because they want their piece. I understand it's about making money, but I remember, and I'm vague about this, but when NFL properties became NFL properties and started selling gear, way back when you don't remember the company called Starter. They had jackets that's where the NFL bought their stuff mostly. And then Starter comes up and says to the NFL, "We'll give you 15% of everything we make." And the NFL, they didn't make it. Somebody else made it for them. The NFL is like a moniker of a billboard. You want to make money? Come here. And that's what it is. You make money by mistake in the NFL. Not for naught. Half of the NFL owners buy NFL teams. Why? How could you lose? You can't lose at all. It's a money-making process that's built in. That's why I say, why do you have to go to Europe? Why in the world do you have to get a piece of betting? Now you're going to have guys, maybe they meet a guy in a casino in the offseason or something, and they try and make a deal with him. I'll throw the game here and there. Now you have that hanging over your players. Not that it didn't. I mean, Alex Karras, I don't know, you know who that is? Alex Karras, yeah. He played for the Detroit Lions way back. He got suspended for betting way back when, the 60s. But, it happened then too. But now it's so prevalent. If you get caught, you're in trouble. But why would you even play with it if you were the NFL? I mean, I know Roger Goodell gets paid bonuses for making money for the owners. Last year's bonus was close to $60 million with a salary of $10 million. It's because of the money he makes for them in TV contracts and stuff. Why? How much more do you need? I mean, Woody Johnson paid $650 million for the team in 2011 or 12, I forget what it was. Team's worth $8 billion now. You can't. For what reason? What did Woody Johnson do to increase that revenue? Nothing. He's involved with the NFL.
He lost games.
And still made a lot of money. But the point of it is why do you have to venture into all these unknown areas? Like, again, Europe, betting. Why you really need that much more revenue?
I also think it hurts the athlete too, because the athlete, I mean, and when you were playing, if somebody went up to you and was like, and really went in your face, Joe, you cost me, your player prop. I know, knowing you would have punched him in the mouth. You would have bopped him in the mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but I think it hurts the athletes because it doesn't make the game fun anymore. It ruins the sport, I
Well,
think.
if you can turn around and take a look at it, somebody side-eyed, and have some kind of speculation of right or wrong, what the hell good is it? You know what I mean? Your integrity is everything. Your honesty, all those things count in real life. Why can't it count on the football field and with your group, NFL players? Why can't it count with you like that? But they don't look at it like that. Everything's about dollars. And it's not about integrity. It's not about how you stand up for what's right. It's about money. And I just think it's bad how they go after it.
That's the state of the modern NFL. And Joe, yeah, we're not geniuses, but if there was one thing you could do to try to fix it, what would it be?
As far as the NFL goes,
As far as the NFL and how the money, how money has just become the dog on the leash that they're trying to hold.
when you have your marketing meetings with all your owners and your owners' people or whatever, take the idea of greed out somehow. Well, we got to make more money. Why? Why? Let's just enhance what we have. Let's enhance our neighborhood of the New York Jets, which is New York. Okay. But why don't we just enhance all that? Why do we have to worry about going to New York, betting? And so just take a little bit of a look inside as far as a team goes. What do you do for your team, for your players, and for the integrity of the game? All sports have lost their integrity over the years just because it's all about money. I mean, what's Messi make? I think Messi makes like almost $100 million from the team he plays for. You know what I mean? Why? I mean,
Mhm.
well, I know why. Abramovich owns them, I think. The Russian guy. But the thing about it is he pays him $100 million because he's making that kind of revenue. You know what I mean?
What worries me is the Saudi Arabia paying Cristiano Ronaldo. Saudi Arabia is a country that you go to where where it is elite, like where women for almost till a couple years ago, women couldn't be outside without
Yeah.
men, and now we're trying to bring international soccer over there. They're getting the World Cup. Money is
Typical,
taking over. Go ahead.
typical integrity. Like I just said, why not build it around something? It's about integrity. And people that care, all they care about is money. Integrity will never be part of it.
It is unfortunate. Let's go on a little bit of a lighter side because we're kind of starting to wrap up here. Easter's coming up. Joe, what are the plans? I know you're a huge family man. I remember there was a huge at your party. Every this Klecko, that Klecko was here. What are the Easter plans for the Kleckos?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I was hurrying up to get done to come onto your podcast because, we're Polish. My mother died a few years ago, and we carry traditions on very much in my family. And we just got done. My sons were here, my daughter-in-laws, all of them were here making pierogies. So we made
Oh,
200.
nice.
Yeah, we made 200 pierogies today. Give everybody takes their down home. Sunday we'll have dinner all together. We go to church and everybody comes back to our house. Our grandkids and everybody, and we have Easter dinner here, and it's all homemade. Everything's home. The only thing that's not homemade is we do have kielbasa, and there's a guy over here that makes it so well we can't even come close. But everything else is homemade.
What did you say everybody was making? I don't know. To all the
You know
to
what
the people.
you know what pierogies are? All right,
No, go
they're
ahead,
they're like
explain it.
they're like a dumpling, okay? And
Okay.
there's different ones. There's potato and sauerkraut and stuff. And basically, you go into a lot of Polish stores and you can buy them, or you can even the one in the supermarkets is Mr. T's. Now, God bless him, Mr. T's been around a long time, but they ain't homemade. You know what I mean? So the pierogies is it's a process. My wife and I started at 8:30 this morning, and we just got done. I came on your thing at 6 o'clock. We just got done. Yeah. So it's something we like as a tradition.
Yeah, it is great to kind of hold on to that.
Oh
Easter's
yeah.
here. Playoffs, sports playoffs are coming up. This is the sports time of year besides football where everything really heats up. So it is exciting. Do you have anything NBA, NFL that you're looking forward to?
I always root for the Knicks because everybody around me loves them. Your
My
grandfather's
grandfather.
he's a diehard Knicks fan. And I have a good friend of mine, my best buddy Bill. He is a big Knicks fan. So I'm looking for the Knicks to do well. I don't know. You keep your fingers crossed a little bit, but we'll see how they do.
My grandfather has the season tickets, and I'm sure when they lose in the second round, he'll be all upset because that's how it goes.
Yeah, he will.
Um,
Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Last but not least, well, Joe, it was great to have you on. Always a lot of fun. The Kleckos are great. I recommend anybody who's ever watched football or whoever appreciates football, look up this man's highlights because he was an absolute bowling ball on the line. You can't really control him. And it's Joe. I always think of you when I look at your highlights as somebody else. Not a lot of players could succeed in this era just because of the different styles, but with your power and with your kind of aggressiveness, I think it would have just been the exact same amount of success. Joe, I want to thank you for having on the Bland Show. This is amazing. This should be updated up in about a week. I'll send you, and hopefully this will be when you get your Hess truck. That this will
I'm
all.
looking forward to that, Noah. That's a good deal. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and we will talk soon. Have a great day and
Without a
enjoy
big A.
Easter.
Thank you
Enjoy
very much.
Easter.
All right,
All right.
pal. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye bye.
Bye. Cheers.